So, the government have arranged to prorogue Parliament, meaning that Parliament will sit for a little under a week less than it was expected to between now and the end of October. So, is this a coup? Or is it in fact an action to prevent one? We all know what coups are from films that we've watched, or from the experience of watching them unfold via the media on our TV screens. Coups happen when unstable governments are overthrown, either by the military or by a foreign power who support a rival faction to the government for their own political or economic reasons. They usually end badly in bloodshed, like most actions against democracy. On Monday, the government's opponents in Parliament for the first time managed to get together and agreed to coordinate their efforts to stop Brexit from happening. They dressed it up in the usual way by saying that it was to prevent no deal happening. But as most people understand, if they were really looking for a better deal than no deal, they wouldn't be standing in the way of the government's efforts to get the EU to negotiate by attempting to take no deal off the table. The only lever that the UK government has to get the EU to either make fundamental changes to the withdrawal agreement or to agree to any kind of interim trade arrangements is the existence of the comparatively worse alternative, from the EU's point of view, of no deal. But of course these people don't want a better deal at all. They just want to stay in the EU. As one of them admitted, even if they'd got the second referendum they'd been campaigning for, they still wouldn't have accepted the result if they'd lost. They are hell-bent on staying in the EU, and given the choice between that and respecting democracy, they choose the EU every time. And it seemed on Tuesday that they were going to attempt to prevent Parliament going into recess over the party conference season for the usual 2 weeks, and instead spend the time between Parliament returning in early September and the end of October, when we're due to leave the EU, working away in Parliament to pass legislation to prevent us from leaving. These are dangerous times, not just because we have a rival faction being supported by a foreign power to remove the government and overthrow the result of a national democratic vote, but because we have a media who are also colluding with this faction and the foreign power to spread disinformation. The mainstream media are going to extreme lengths to portray Boris Johnson as a right-wing dictator, playing to all the worst fears that they have stoked in the general population by misrepresenting the truth over the last 3 years. This picture, accompanying this headline, is just another shameful example of a media with an anti-democratic political agenda, which ironically is behaving as the media did under the direction of Joseph Goebbels in 1930s Germany. The suggestion by mainstream media that Boris is behaving like Hitler is appalling. We are living in an Orwellian dystopian time where words and meanings are perverted, reversed and distorted, where the opponents of democratic liberty deliberately and cynically, repeatedly deploy the tactic of defending their actions by violently attacking the Democrats with the labels that they themselves truly deserve. A general election is coming, and it will decide our short-term future with the EU. Preferably, it will happen after we've left, as democracy demands, with some campaigning to rejoin, but it may happen before. If the government wanted to ensure that we left the EU on the 31st of October, deal or no deal, as we voted for, they could have prorogued Parliament until then. Many would have supported such a measure, but they haven't done that. Instead, they've simply limited the parliamentary time available for insurrection against democracy. This isn't a coup, it's an action by the government to moderate the attempts of the overthrowers without denying them a democratic avenue for expressing their views. It's an action to try to prevent a coup, an overthrowing of the democratic vote, and all the terrible backlash which that would provoke. Because if the overthrowers did succeed in discarding and overriding the democratic vote of the people, the only avenue open to the rest of us would be non-democratic action. Civil disobedience, unrest, ultimately even full-blown, blood on the streets, civil war. By taking this action, the government are attempting to divert the nation away from this terrible pathway to destruction. This action is about a true understanding of democracy and the perils of the alternative. It's about preventing democratic abuse and accepting that your political opponents must have their voices heard too. But all the time the mainstream media are attempting to portray these actions as a coup in themselves, a supposed affront to democracy. They're dragging us back in that perilous direction. So please share this video on social media or via email with as many people as you can, because we need to ensure that the public really do know what's actually going on here. To see our future videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon. That way you'll get a notification by email as soon as a new video is available. In the meantime, please do help us out and like and share or retweet this post so your friends and followers can see it too. Thanks for watching. See you next time.